A cruel landlord waved eviction papers as movers climbed the porch to throw an elderly couple into the rain. Neighbors filmed in silence as the frail couple clutched each other, refusing to abandon their home of 40 years. Then 3 cars pulled up, and the people who stepped out made the landlord's face drain of all color. Rain hammered the cracked pavement of Riverside Street as landlord Marcus Webb stood on the porch of the Henderson house. Eviction papers clutched triumphantly, while 4 movers waited behind him to clear out the elderly couple's belongings. 78-year-old Eleanor Henderson held a brass key to her chest, like a sacred object, while her husband Walter, 82 and leaning heavily on his cane, positioned himself between the door and Webb's advancing presence. The couple had lived in this modest home for 40 years, raising 7 foster children who'd passed through their care, pouring their teacher salaries into repairs and love rather than savings, now facing eviction because Webb had bought the property and tripled the rent they simply couldn't afford on their fixed retirement income. Neighbors gathered with phones raised, some filming the injustice but none intervening against Webb's legal authority, his cruel smile suggesting he enjoyed watching these decent people suffer their displacement. Eleanor's voice trembled but held dignity. "Mr. Webb, please. Just 1 more week to find somewhere to go. We've lived here our entire marriage." Webb's response dripped with contempt. "You should have saved better instead of wasting money on other people's unwanted kids. Not my problem, you're broke. You're trespassing now. Clear out, or I call the police to remove you forcefully." Walter's grip tightened on his cane, decades of dignity preventing him from begging but his weathered face showing the desperation of having nowhere to go. Then a car horn shattered the tense silence. A sleek black sedan stopped abruptly at the curb, and a woman in her 30s emerged wearing an elegant pink power suit, leather briefcase in hand, her commanding presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. She strode up the walkway with authority that made Webb step back instinctively. Eleanor gasped. "Sarah!" The woman was Sarah Chen, the Hendersons' first foster child 30 years ago, now a prominent civil rights attorney. Behind her, a military jeep pulled up, and a man in army dress uniform stepped out, medals gleaming even in the gray rain. Marcus, their second foster son, now a decorated captain. Finally, an SUV arrived, and out stepped a woman followed by camera crew, her press credentials visible. Jennifer, their 3rd foster child, now an investigative journalist. Sarah reached the porch first, her voice cutting through the rain with legal precision. "Mr. Webb, I'm Sarah Chen, attorney for Eleanor and Walter Henderson. This eviction is illegal under several housing protection statutes for elderly residents. I have injunctions from 3 judges stopping this action immediately." Webb's confident sneer faltered as Sarah produced documents that made the movers back away immediately, recognizing real legal authority. "That's impossible. I followed all procedures. My lawyers approved everything." Sarah's smile was ice cold. "Your lawyers missed the fact that this property has historic preservation protections the Hendersons applied for last month, that elderly tenants have additional protections you violated, and that your rent increase constitutes predatory housing practices under state law. You're facing litigation that will cost you far more than this property is worth." Captain Marcus Henderson stepped forward, his military bearing making Webb physically retreat. "And I'm here to ensure my parents aren't harassed or threatened during this process. Any further intimidation will be reported to every authority I have access to, including the governor's office, where I have direct contacts." Webb's face had gone pale as he realized these weren't helpless elderly people anymore. They had powerful advocates who wouldn't tolerate abuse. Jennifer, the journalist, raised her camera. "And I'm here to document everything for the investigative series I'm producing on predatory landlords exploiting elderly residents. Your face and practices will be broadcast across 3 states. Would you like to comment on why you're evicting a couple who fostered dozens of children over 40 years? The other 4 foster children arrived within minutes. A doctor, a teacher, a small business owner, and a social worker. All successful adults who'd been rescued from terrible circumstances by the Hendersons' unconditional love and given chances they'd never have had otherwise. They formed a protective wall around their parents on the porch, presenting a united front that transformed the narrative from helpless victims to beloved family protected by accomplished children. Sarah addressed the gathered neighbors whose phones were still recording. The Hendersons spent 40 years giving homeless children love and stability. They saved 7 lives, including mine, giving us family when we had nothing. Today we return that gift by ensuring they're never vulnerable again. The legal battle was swift and decisive. Sarah's firm took Webb's case pro bono, discovering his pattern of exploiting elderly tenants across multiple properties, violations that resulted in massive fines and forced property sales. The Hendersons not only kept their home, but the judge awarded them full ownership as compensation for Webb's illegal harassment. Decades of their rent payments retroactively applied toward purchase price, Webb was forced to accept. Their 7 foster children pooled resources to renovate the house completely. Modern systems installed while preserving the character that held 40 years of memories, ensuring their parents would live comfortably for their remaining years. But the story's impact extended beyond one family. Jennifer's investigative series exposed predatory practices affecting hundreds of elderly residents, leading to new legislation protecting vulnerable tenants. Marcus used his military connections to establish veteran volunteer programs, helping elderly people with home repairs and legal advocacy. Sarah's firm created a nonprofit providing free legal services to seniors facing housing exploitation. The doctor provided free medical care, the teacher offered tutoring to neighborhood children, the business owner hired local youth, and the social worker connected families with needed services, all of them paying forward the investment the Hendersons had made in their lives decades earlier. Eleanor and Walter sat on their renovated porch months later, watching their 7 children and 13 grandchildren play in the yard during a family reunion, their modest home transformed, but their hearts unchanged by the justice they'd received. Walter squeezed Eleanor's hand gently. "We never expected anything back from those kids. We just loved them because they needed love." Eleanor smiled through happy tears. "And they loved us back by making sure we're safe." That's what family means, not blood, but choice and commitment. Their story spread through communities nationwide, inspiring people to value the quiet heroes who invest in others without expecting return, reminding everyone that the children we nurture today become the protectors who defend us tomorrow. That love given freely creates bonds stronger than legal contracts, and that sometimes justice arrives not from systems, but from the hearts of people we've helped, proving that what you plant in others' lives eventually grows into the forest that shelters you when storms come. That family is built through years of showing up, and that the most valuable inheritance isn't money, but the love that compels people to protect those who once protected them.